Hello there, kia ora. As we go into the election year, we need to realise that we're dealing with a digital battlefield out there. Anyone standing up and having their say against the ridiculously well-funded current regime are probably going to face a raft of argument types designed to undermine and belittle them for having their own opinions, especially when we face outright misleading bullshit to stir up people like we saw yesterday, where National outright lied after the broadly supportive of measures taken that National agreed to at the time second phase COVID inquiry was released. And while it's gratifying to see people overwhelmingly call out their bullshit when they pull a stunt like this, unfortunately there are people who are happy to be fooled by the spin and happy to keep spinning it while attacking those with an alternative viewpoint to theirs. So I wanted to make sure that we were all aware of the way that these work. Think of it as digital self-defense. In the same way that we're taught not to click on phishing emails, we also need to learn to defend ourselves from digital dodginess from comment sections by looking at the most common methods of attack in comment sections to be able to recognize them. So I thought I'd use this example that I got in my comments yesterday from regular faceless right-wing troll what's his name to show you some tricks that are often employed by political trolls and how to limit their impact. And because this is also a podcast that people listen to, I'm going to read out what the statement says. You would have chastised National or New Zealand First if they had done this. Also, what plans or what had Labour built before they banned oil and gas? Once again, you would have bagged National if they had not saved the refineries and called it short-sighted. Maybe take your biased left eye patch off and start balanced reporting, or you are just another left-wing media that everyone is sick of, and that's why nobody trusts MSM anymore. Wake up, champ, or are you waiting for Willie Jackson's media fund again? Now, this comment was on the video that I did showing the easily debunked statements from New Zealand First around the Marsden Point refinery were a sign of how they're clearly appealing to people like, well, this bright commentator apparently. It starts with the classic strawman argument, trying to get me to defend something that I never said, because they created a hypothetical statement and used that to create a position statement. It's followed by a classic red herring, asking what Labour had as a contingency for doing something completely unrelated to the original video. It's then switched to an ad hominem attack, focusing on my bias and policing my tone. It's a statement riddled with the most common argument types found online and a ton of inaccuracies. Like saying that the decision to ban oil and gas exploration was somehow responsible for the closure of the Marsden Point refinery. As mentioned in that video, because all of the data is out there, crude oil found in New Zealand is what we call a light sweet crude, and Marsden Point was not able to process it. Instead, all of the oil in this country gets exported for processing, and it's been that way for close to 60 years. Also, the ban itself wasn't a cease and desist immediate operations order. It was a notice that no new licenses for exploration would be issued and no new permits would be renewed when they came up for renewal. And Channel Infrastructure is a commercial entity listed in the stock exchange. Their shareholders include BP, Mobil and Z Energy, and they made the commercial decision based on economic factors like global overcapacity creating hyper-efficient refineries in nearby Asia and a drop in fuel demand, especially jet fuel, which is what was primarily manufactured at Marsden Point due to COVID. And to be fair, with the number of people we have leaving the country because the economy was tanked by the parties this commentator is supporting, maybe we should be making more jet fuel. That's just one weird correlation, though, that this commentator is mixing up with causation on the refinery. An argument also clearly being used by New Zealand First leadership. But then there's the comments that show that the commentator doesn't actually seem to have the media literacy skills to understand the way media influence works these days. For a start, someone making videos online, the way that I do, is not mainstream media. There's actually a few ways that you can define mainstream media, like an institutional legacy definition, which has physical spaces for studios and newsrooms, and formal codes of conduct and a budget, or a functional definition that looks at the power of media outlets to set agendas in public narrative, like we saw last week in the frenzy about the poll from a questionable pollster for a dodgy AstroTurf group linked to the worst industries, and how that looked like it might bring down the Prime Minister. Oh, and I'm not a journalist. Not only do I not actually have to create balanced reporting, what I try and do is talk to my experience and expertise and use that to consider what's going on around me, coupled with my own personal beliefs, ideologies, and values. And again, I'm not a member of mainstream media. Media shouldn't create balance in what it covers anyway, if it means that it produces inaccuracies. Accuracy should always be the first focus of all news media. That's why it was so problematic when the head of TVNZ called up Paul Goldsmith to go, hey, about that story where we accurately reported numbers that made you look bad. Yeah, sorry. Also, the public interest journalism fund that they allude to here, another of the many targets for conspiracy theorists unable to think critically or willing to actually do the research, was announced under the initial direction of Chris Fa'afoy as broadcasting minister, not Willie Jackson, and independently administered by New Zealand On Air, not just handed out by the government to whoever they wanted. By being aware of the common argument types and methodologies that we'll see employed by clearly balanced and unbiased users like the left are wrong, we can avoid mental burnout because these arguments aren't designed to find a solution, they're designed to trigger an emotional response, and walking away can be the best thing for our mental health in these circumstances. Also, ignoring them starves the algorithms. By commenting in any way, you feed the engagement part of the mechanisms, but not commenting directly, you essentially ghost the comment and cut off oxygen to that sort of content. And if you downvote, block, or report inaccurate, leading, incorrect, or harmful content, that shows the algorithm that you don't think that the content is worth them pushing it out to others. It can make it impotent, a feeling which I'm sure many right-wing commentators feel all the time. The way that they keep going on and on and on about being cancelled by woke. And if you can recognize the toolkit that gets used by comments like this, you can create mental ad blocks that helps recognize this type of content as a tactical attempt to sway votes and opinions that's not based on truth or reality, but emotion, which voters respond to in significant ways. We don't have to give power or spread the impact of people who have no interest in learning from or understanding others, or who feel their emotions are more accurate than facts and data. In this election, we can all work to make sure that their influence is limited by using tools designed to limit their reach, and tell the machines these people's efforts are as impotent as their profiles are faceless and blank. Oh, hey there, podcast listeners. Thanks for checking out today's podcast, whether that's on video or audio. I really appreciate it. And I did finally get around to doing a podcast end tag, which I've been meaning to do for a while instead of just taking you onto the Facebook version. So while you're here, why not hit that subscribe button so that you can get updates coming in directly every time there's a new episode uploaded. Just seems like a really simple way to keep up to date with all of the crazy that's going on. So yeah, give that a shot and I'll talk to you soon.